Zoe here is a dedicated EV that launched nearly nigh on 10 years ago. Renault really were the early adopters of electric vehicles, or ZEVs as they like to call them, because they had things like the Twizy, the little electric quadricycle, this all the way through to full electric vans. Over the years though, the Zoe's been refined rather than reinvented, because frankly, it kind of looks the same as it always ever did. Are people cruelly overlooking it though? I think they might be. In this video, I'm going to share what it's like to live with one of these, a GT Spec Zoe, over the last 6 months and about 6,500 miles. The facts, the things I like, the things I don't like, and something called Euro NCap. Flipping cold today because it's winter, and that's one of the things I like to do when I have a car long term. I like to drive it through the seasons. I got it in the summer, I've now got it in the harder months, which is typically a more difficult thing for an electric car anyway, but we'll come on to that in a tick. On the outside, the Zoe it's basically the same. I mean, I'm not going to go into the details. The bumper's a little bit different, there's a few little details. It's got LED headlights as standard now. I think it's one of those cars, the more you look at it, there's some really interesting indentations and curves on the Zoe, but fundamentally from this angle, you will identify it as being, it is 5-door only. So all Zoes are the same shape, the same spec. Here's the door with a little hidden handle there, and it's about the same size as a Ford Fiesta. My wife, Chops, actually is quite prejudiced against this car. She thinks it's the sort of car that'll be driven by a middle-aged woman, possibly called Hazel. And especially in this colour, which is called Celadon Blue and is an option, £600 option. In fact, all the colours are optional apart from white on the Zoe, and I do think it looks especially good in black or grey. But Celadon Blue, this sort of like bright metallic, it's the same colour as the winter sky today. Celadon Blue. I actually think it looks a bit like an 80s Ford colour my dad had a Granada in. But anyway, the car is not aggressive. It sort of bucks the trend of a lot of cars trying to be aggressive these days and quite kind of like rugged. It's not that. It's quite sit up and beg. It's quite unassuming. And I suspect there's a bit of prejudice against the fact it's called a Zoe, a woman's name. But at least it's not Portuguese for the word cunt, like the Hyundai Kona. I'm looking at you, Hyundai. Okay, let's get on to my specific Zoe spec. My Zoe spec is the range-topping ZE50 R135 in GT trim. That means, in fact, all Zoes now have got this battery pack, 52 kilowatt hour. This delivers a WLTP range of 245 miles, which is 395 kilometers. And it has the ability, my particular version, to rapid charge up to 50 kilowatts. And that is not as standard on all Zoes. It comes with a monthly price at the moment of £199, 0% APR, but I don't normally go into the monthly payments because they change so much on these features. It's £30,495 with the government incentive right now, and the government incentive, sad emoji face, has been reduced. It is now £1,500, not 2.5 or 3 grand as was. Entry-level Zoes are from 27,500 quid. Now, the boot of the Zoe, it's not electric opening or anything like that, which I don't mind about, and it's actually quite light. In fact, all the doors and things do feel quite light, which might make some people nervous at the fact it's tinny, but honestly, it doesn't bother me. The boot is a really surprising element of the Zoe. Although on paper you read the spec and it's 338 litres, so it's bigger than a Corsa E, bigger than an E208 Peugeot, a bit smaller than an E C4 Citroën. In the real world, it's incredibly useful. It's very, very deep. It's not a flat entry point. There's a big threshold kind of drop step here. But that's kind of good, I've noticed, because stuff doesn't fall around so much. And there's a ledge there before it goes up to the back seats. I have never, ever managed to find anything which it can't fit. It's just really useful. So I love the boot. It's a good size for the size of the car. I don't like the parcel shelf. It seems to be really difficult to get out when I've needed to put the seats down. So you do that, and then you basically you can't get it out without moving the seat forward. Or I've tried it numerous ways. It's either me being massively thick, which it could be, or it's just a bit of a clunky design. But once you drop the seats, and they are 60/40 on these higher cars, you can fit tons in here. And I've had the seats down loads. I'll put some pictures up of stuff I've done on social media. I've put shitloads in there. Up until recently, there were two battery specifications of Zoe. There was the ZE40 and the ZE50. Both conservatively rated, actually, with their usable battery pack sizes, 41 kilowatt hours and 52 kilowatt hours. They're both actively air-cooled. This does not have a liquid-cooled battery pack, and we'll talk about that shortly. But apparently the ZE40 Zoe battery pack was exactly the same battery pack as the ZE50. Same amount of cells, 192 cells, but yet it had just got a pared back battery management system, so it only used 60% of its overall ability, if you like. And apparently, I was reading this with interest, it was to improve the life cycle of the battery, make it immune to any capacity degradation. And Renault apparently did this so it could gather data on battery condition over time. A few forums, including the Renault Zoe Owners Club, who are very active on this car, they pointed out it might have been smarter to have offered the customer the option to set the maximum charge limit by themselves via an app or something like that. Hyundai and Kia do that, and other car makers do that. Anyway, a few forums have suggested that the ZE40s might be the ones to buy second-hand because they have been so conservative and so protective over their battery pack, although I haven't noticed any issues with the degradation of the battery pack, and this car is still pretty young. Now, running costs are a big deal with an EV. You normally pay more money initially than a piston car when you buy the thing, but servicing and running costs are lower. One of the things I like about the Zoe actually is these are the biggest wheels it comes with, the 16s. Only 16s, 195/55 16 tyres, so the tyres are quite cheap. It's not aggressive on tyres. I've not noticed any kind of severe wear, and I've given it a bit of stick now and again. These are diamond cut alloys, which are only on the GT line. To be honest, they're okay, they're a bit meh. But the thing I like about it is it rides really well, because of these tyres, I suspect. And the other thing, it has 280mm discs, front and rear, same size front and rear. A lot of EVs have drums at the back. This has discs, and they don't show any signs of corrosion. I like it. I'll talk about the ride a bit more when I'm driving. Now, at low speeds in the Zoe, you can probably hear that sort of mandatory murmuring noise. That's just so that pedestrians hear you, know that you're there. This driving position, like I said, is really high. The seats are comfortable. I wish it was lower, but I've done a lot of long journeys in the Zoe, and I do really like it. It does bring this up all the time, and I still don't know why. It keeps wanting to say, "Oh, are you going home?" And it's like, no, I'm not going home. I'll decide if I'm going home. Stop being annoying. One of my favourite games with the Zoe, and this is because when you plug it in and you look at the range is deeply honest and believable. And I try and play the game of how long can you drive it and it still says 100% charged if it's fully charged. My record is 11 miles. I drove here to work this morning, drove 7 miles in winter with the heating on, with my heated seat on, and it was still showing 100%. It's really, really pretty good. I have to say, it's really pretty good. The Zoe's quiet. Even at motorway speeds, I think it's actually a pretty quiet car for the segment. It's not quite as comfortable as the Citroën EC4. And if you haven't seen my review of the EC4, the Vauxhall Corsa E, and my long-term tests on the Peugeot 2008, I will put a link in there above. Now, it's got these small 16-inch wheels and tyres, quite pillowy tyres, so the ride is on the soft side, but it's not wallowy, and it does create travel sickness with other members of my family. I have no problem with it at all. I think it's the right balance between this sort of the firmness which a lot of eco cars are given, rather than rather than it just being a bit too sloppy. It is not a sloppy car, the Zoe. The handling does react. If you want to press on a bit, you really can, surprisingly so. Although, I mean, torque-wise, 245 Newton meters, I think it is, and the response is good, but this is not like an arse terror. This is a 9.5 second to 62 car, and this is the more powerful R135, which means 135 horsepower from the 100 kilowatt motor. So what I would say is I would not want any less power than that, but day to day I found it to be adequate. This is not a performance car, but what the Zoe is, and this is so vital, is it is exceptionally efficient. As an electric car, it's exceptionally efficient. I suspect the aerodynamics is partly due to that, but it's just, honestly, it's a really impressive car. I've managed to eke out so much value from each battery charge, and that goes a long way with a car that you use for commuting and for daily business. In fact, going back to that, this little binnacle here, it tells you your miles per kilowatt hour usage. I've liaised with the guys at the Renault Zoe Owners Club. In winter, I'm getting about 3.2, 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour. And I'm talking about deep winter, frosty starts kind of time. And then in the summer, I was getting late 4s, 4.7, 4.8. A lot of the members were regularly getting over 5 miles per kilowatt hour, which is really good. The Zoe's in a world with a lot of rival EVs, which probably offer more pizzazz and more kit, but what they don't offer is sheer efficiency on this level. There's a lot of prejudice against French cars and electrics. People go, oh, I wouldn't buy a French car because of electrics. Well, hear this. Under the bonnet there, that is the electric motor, and it's made by Continental. Continental are German. So it has a German motor, and that motor is a permanently excited motor, which means it uses less rare earth metals, and it houses copper coils in the stator and the rotor. Conti also supplies other bits on this car, like the airbag control unit and the sensors and some of the audio and the keyless entry. So it has a German motor, and it has LG Chem cells, battery cells, which are Korean last time I checked, and they're actively air cooled, they're not liquid cooled. So if you're thinking, oh no, French car, dodgy electrics, well, it's not that French actually underneath. Under here though, the only thing I've ever done is put screen wash in it, and that's there, right there. The motor's set well back. This scuttle panel here, and I've left them here, is a bit of a collector of leaves like all of these things. So it's not hard to do, it's just easier to pop the bonnet to access it. And the same with the wipers, it's easier to pop the bonnet to access wiper blades and cleaning it, just because of the proportions of the Zoe. You can also see from that sort of angle, these really nice bulbous headlights that kind of, they poke out from the bodywork, the front and rear light clusters. They're interesting, you can't quite always see it until you walk around the car. Now let's talk about charging. Now the struggle for a lot of EV manufacturers is trying to get EVs to make money, to produce them at a price where they can make profit on all this R&D and the cost of the materials like batteries and stuff. And I understand that. So what Renault has done is it's gradually cost-cutted the Zoe. On the one hand improving it, on the other hand it's done some very random cost-cutting things, and one of them is this, the remote control. It's the little sort of key style card that Renault uses. I don't mind it at all, it fits in your pocket nicely. On this, on the previous models, you could open the charge door, which is on the nose of the Zoe, which is actually one of the best places because it's ambidextrous, it's not sided. But you can't open it on the remote. The only way you can open this door is doing this. I have to go in, and I have to press this little button, and I have to go round. Now, it doesn't seem like a big deal today, but in the dark when you're on your own and you just want to like plug the car in from your house, it's a bit of a tosser actually. Enough of that. Nice big diamond logo. When you open it, you're greeted by actually a very well designed socket system with properly sealed hinged plastic flaps. I say that because on more expensive cars they can be just flimsy little rubber bungs and I don't like it. There's a flashing light system which tells you what's going on. Yellow for trying to communicate, blue if it's on a timer, red if there's an issue, green if it's actually charging. So the current Zoe is able to charge up to 22 kilowatts AC on board as standard. and that's really useful. That's with the Type 2 normal, charger. However, rapid charging is not standard on Zoe models. It is if you buy the top spec car like this one, the GT line, but it isn't otherwise. I would massively advise you to do that unless you're using your car as a very kind of low mileage city situation. It can charge DC rapid up to 50 kilowatts, which I think is fine at the moment, because most of the rapid charge networks in Britain, public charges, are about 50, but it's probably not that future-proofed. I've had no problems rapid charging this car, and I've driven this car long journeys and short journeys. Because of the job I do, I never know where I'm going to go. I don't have a habitual route, and I've found it to be great at rapid charging. Home charging has been quite interesting, because I've got my Pod Point 7 kilowatt home charger, and the Renault decided it didn't like it, and it kept flashing up with a little thing on the dashboard saying, the actual terminology I wrote down because I thought it was a bit odd, insufficient earth isolation, and it just refused to communicate with it. And it turns out this is not a new problem. It's not me, it's the car. The Zoe has a very specific type of system that it uses. It needs a really strong earth, I think because of the motor setup that it has. So I've been charging this off a 3-pin at home a lot. It's not annoyed me as much as I thought it would. But the main thing is rapid charging has been great. Oh, and it will 0 to 80% in just over an hour at 50 kilowatts. But of course, I never roll into a public charging station with 0%. So 40 minutes, I usually get a really healthy dose of charge. What is weird, and this is important, I seemingly cannot sit in the car and use the heating in the car while I'm sitting at a charge point, a rapid charge point, which can be a bit annoying. So I always have a ski jacket in the boot. So when we got the Zoe, I think you were a little bit prejudiced. I'm not going to lie.
Underwhelmed is more the, probably more the accurate term for it.
Why? What was the rationale for that?
It just looks like an old lady's car, really. Not that there's anything wrong with old lady cars. It just was. I mean, the colour. I didn't like the colour. I don't like the colour.
Celadon blue.
The colour is very old lady, and maybe in a different colour, it might look a little bit edgier.
It does look good in black and grey.
Does it?
And there's a titanium grey and a black. I think it looks significantly different in black.
Yeah, it needs some accents of something, I think, because it's just quite a non, as the kids say, non-shape. And obviously I like shapes.
There are some interesting curves going on here. I was thinking it's quite unassuming, which could be good for witness protection.
Or just old ladies.
Or old ladies in witness protection, yeah.
To drive, it's okay. It makes everyone in the family car sick. Have you said that yet?
I thought it was just Kitty May.
No, we all get car sick from the Zoe. The volume, that really me off, the volume.
What, here? Or there?
Well, I didn't know it was there. I've been looking for the volume forever.
Right there. It's been on Renault's for about 25 years now.
Well, I've been looking for the volume
Same
everywhere.
switch, in fact, for 25 years.
And I have to basically do that, and I'm thinking it's just not safe.
You prune.
So, yeah, okay.
It's there. Now you've got B mode in the shifter here, so you can put it in D, and that's no regenerative braking, or you slap it into B, and B is obviously when you come off the throttle, it regens a little bit, that digital needle swings into the blue. The Zoe has one level, there's only one level of B braking mode. There isn't an adjustment, there's no plus, plus, minus, minus, which other manufacturers have, and I would have liked a bit of adjustment option, and it isn't one pedal driving, this is not Nissan Leaf one pedal driving, this is quite mild regen, but it does recoup really well. It tells you how many kilowatts you're clawing back. I've managed to claw back, kind of 18 kilowatts when I'm just coming off the gas. Again, the pedal controls and everything, this doesn't have sport mode. It's not a sharp car. It's not sporty. It's unassuming. I like the weight of the steering. I like the way that the suspension is judged, because on a long journey I just chill out. It's not quite as chilled out as the Citroen EC4. The ride in that car was wonderful. But I got my heated steering wheel on, I got my heated seats on with the physical buttons there, and I can go into the menus and I can look at my energy information, the history of my energy, which unfortunately doesn't go all the way back. It just goes back to since you zeroed the trip. I would have liked a little bit more information on that, but it's all easy to find. Renault have definitely presented it in a way which plebs like me can kind of digest. So 245 mile WLTP quoted range. In winter, I've been getting about 170 miles, 165 on a very cold start, which I'm pleased with. I'm impressed with that. Using heating the whole time, which does make a difference. And the heat pump on this Zoe is so efficient. It's probably even more efficient than the Kia Soul that I had. And then in summer, I've been getting 220 miles, something 225, sometimes 230. So it's a very realistic and decent battery pack, this 52 kilowatt hour battery pack. That's 52 kilowatt hour usable. I think it's 54 point something in total. Pulling out of a junction, full throttle. Now it's really smooth power delivery. 62 no problem and under 10 seconds, but I wouldn't want it to be any slower than that. I found it to be just fine. I think we do get carried away with kind of launch control in EVs and stuff, but real world kind of like keeping it normal, non-sporty cars, I think it's fine. You can press the eco button on the Zoe, and I have done that when I've got fairly desperate and I'm on a long journey and I want to really get the maximum out. I think it tops the speed to 60 miles an hour and dumbs down the throttle and numbs off the climate control and stuff. But honestly, it's the first EV I've driven where I'm not scared to use the heating all the time in winter. You can dial it right down nice and low, just a little bit here and there, and it's great. So the Euro NCap situation. When this car first came out in 2013, it was a very different beast mechanically, much lower range, much smaller battery, older technology, but it was a 5-star Euro NCap rated car. Recently, the Zoe has made the news because Euro NCap tested it in its current form and it scored 0. Disaster. Now, I know the protocols for Euro NCap do change almost every year, so you can't always take that as verbatim. You have to investigate what their protocol is. But there's no denying Renault, in an effort to try and cut corners, cut costs, took out some really important elements of the Zoe. And the worst one that they took out, the one that created this 0 score, was high level side impact airbags from the driver and the passenger side. And that allegedly could cause very serious injury in an incident. Now, Renault has an official line on this, which I asked them and I've got it written down. And really what they've said is, looking at their crash predictions and their data, they decided to add more safety features, digital safety features like lane keep assist and the emergency brake warning signs and that sort of thing. And they decided to remove those airbags. A lot of people think that was a huge error. And I think they're going to find it very difficult to claw their way back from getting a 0 score Euro NCap, especially as this is the sort of car you will use as a family vehicle. Whilst I don't believe that the Euro NCap score is a deal breaker for me as someone that's lived with this for half a year, it's affected so many people to the point where the guy that actually runs the Renault Zoe Owners Club, Craig, he's actually sold his Renault Zoe. He's that disgraced by Renault's decision to quietly remove those safety airbags. Now, the interesting thing about the Zoe for me is it's sort of a cabin of 3 halves. in that this is the bit which Renault's put the effort and the cash into, and it gradually, as you move to the back, it all gets a bit cheaper and cut price to the point where the boot has just got, you know, a flimsy bit of carpet and there's bare metal, and it's just a boot. It's very utilitarian. It's like, you're just going to put loads of crap in there, and you are. It's true. But up here, I really like this part of the cabin, and obviously I've spent a lot of my time driving solo in this car, so I've flitted between doing short, sharp school journeys all the way through to big, long road trips. And considering the Zoe was really developed to be more of a city car, nowadays I think it's not just a city car. This is proved it's not just a city car. So what have we got? Entry-level Zoes come with 100% recycled fibre seating and trim cards. This particular version, the GT line, has some man-made stuff here, which is basically vinyl, and recycled fibres, and I really like the recycled fibres. The seats are very comfortable, and I have heated seats, which I make use of. In fact, I would not buy an electric car in the UK without heated seat option. It's got this interesting pattern on the roof, like a sort of electrical connection here. There's loads of headroom in the Zoe, but the driving position is something that will divide people. I'm a tall guy. I tend to want to sit low in a car, quite snug, and you cannot adjust the height of the seat in the Zoe. It's quite high, and if you're trying to find an excuse to buy an SUV or a crossover, don't until you've driven a Zoe, because you do sit high. The dash is low, the seat is high, and in fact a friend of mine who'd recently ordered a Tesla Model 3, she got in this and she said, I much prefer the driving position and the cabin to the Model 3. There's a really well-judged combination of touchscreen and physical buttons in the Zoe, and I think there's this ongoing battle with, should everything be touchscreen, and I really think it shouldn't. Oh, there's me coffee. There are 2 cup holders here. And because this is the GT line, it also has some leather in it. That is the only leather part in this car, the leather stitched steering wheel. It's a good steering wheel. Adjustability, again, it's fairly limited. It can go in and out, can't go up and down much. I don't mind it. It's the fact I would like a seat that could go up or down. And actually, thinking about it, the seat has got the combined headrest. It's all one piece, which is not a problem for me. It's comfortable, I like it. It can be a problem if you're in the back, but I'll talk about that in a sec. You know what I said about the cabin of the Zoe being a sort of tale of 2 or 3 halves? It definitely starts cost-cutting the further you get back from the driver's seat. The plastics on the door cards, they are quite basic. In fact, the experience back here is basic. One of my kids seems to get quite motion sick from this car, so she has to sit in the front. Although the ride of the car, of the Zoe, I think is brilliant. There isn't a lot going on here. Storage in these door pockets on this side are awful. They're too slim, you can't fit drinks in them. There's no armrest to come down, there's no drinks holders at all, which can be a bit of a problem, but there are 2 USBs, so you can shut them up with devices. You just can't put their drinks anywhere. There's 3 headrests because it's 5-seater. There's the middle belt up there in the ceiling. And there is actually, I was going to say, there's no storage in the backs of the seats, but in one of them there seems to be this weird side sleeve, which I hadn't even noticed until today, and I've lived with this car for 6 months. In a world where electric cars are getting more and more exotic and luxurious, I feel like the Zoe is like a really satisfying but simple soup, a wholesome soup. A satisfying soup is not something you'll brag to your friends about. You'll just eat it and it will feel like you've been satisfied. And that's the thing about the Zoe. I know I've criticised it in a number of areas, but it is actually a really, really good, everyday, get on with the job kind of car. It's not particularly stylish, it's not sexy, but when you boil it down to its bones, the bones of the Zoe, that motor, that battery, that WLTP range is really, really good. And it's an incredibly efficient electric car. So really it depends on whether that is as important to you as the things that Renault seems to have tripped up on and removed, and the whole Euro NCap debacle. Anyway, I've enjoyed my 6,500 miles with it, and I will be sad to see it go. I've been Johnny Smith. This is The Late Break Show. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you haven't already subscribed, why not subscribe? Maybe you're an owner of a Zoe. I'd like to know your comments below.